talking about the hill.
Good afternoon, Virginia Film Festival. Welcome to this screening in the festival's annual track featuring films selected to the Library of Congress National Film Registry. My name is Gregory Lukow. I'm Chief of the Library of Congress's National Audiovisual Conservation Center at the Packard campus, which is located just 45 miles north of here in Culbreth, Virginia. The Library of Congress has had that facility for about 8 years now, opened up in 2007. The Library of Congress Registry, which is 25 films that are added every year to the registry, films that are deemed to be of historic, aesthetic, or cultural significance to the United States and its citizens. We've been naming 25 films to the registry since the first year of the registry began in 1989. And we have an advisory board, the National Film Preservation Board, which assists the Librarian of Congress every year in nominating and selecting these titles to the National Film Registry. And it's my great pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you one of this year's festival special guests, a member of the Library of Congress National Film Preservation Board, and also known to you from his many years as a familiar face on television, reviewing films, writing a lot of books on the history of American cinema, popular cinema, Mr. Leonard Maltin. Now, let me just, a few more words. Leonard also, I'm very pleased to tell you, has for many years served as a member of the charitable affiliate of the National Film Preservation Board, which is the National Film Preservation Foundation, which is the national entity created by Congress, along with the National Film Preservation Board at the Library of Congress over 25 years ago, to help fund the preservation of the nation's film heritage. The film that we're seeing today was named early on to the National Film Registry, the Maltese Falcon. I'm going to let Leonard talk to you about the film. I will note, however, that the original camera negative, the film that was in the camera when director John Huston was behind it and Humphrey Bogart was in front of it, resides just 45 miles north of here at the Culbreth campus. And we preserved this film many years ago. And so what you'll be watching here is no doubt an element made from that preservation product. So now, to talk more about the film, please welcome one of this year's Virginia Film Festival special guests, Mr. Leonard Maltin.
Very, very much. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to see such a great turnout today. Now, just as a matter of curiosity, don't be embarrassed. This is not a test. How many people here have never seen the Maltese Falcon? You're going to see it for the first time. Oh, lucky you. Lucky you're seeing this for the first time, and to see this for the first time the way it should be seen, in a theater, on a big screen, in the dark with a simpatico audience. That's how it was meant to be seen. Now, a second question then. How many people have never seen it in a theater? Yeah, and that's what this is all about. You know, some people don't understand. They say, well, wait a minute, I see it on television. I've seen it on Turner Classic Movies. I own the DVD. What's the big deal about preserving it? What does that mean to preserve it? Greg could speak to that better than I, but as he said, the camera negative is a precious, precious thing, because that captures the original film as it was meant to be, as it was shot and it was meant to be seen. And sometimes the various copies that we get to watch are a generation or two, or even three away. Now, because this is a classic, it's so well known and still so well loved, it's been well treated. And it's, you know, and it's, I don't think I've ever seen a bad copy of this film. But if there isn't a 35mm print that can be screened in a theater, it hasn't really been preserved. video copy is nice, and it's convenient, and it's great to share with your friends, but it's not the same thing as this. And now digital preservation is a whole other ball of wax that I won't even get into. But there's nothing wrong with digital projection and all of that, but still can't quite duplicate the experience of seeing a film. When people talk about resolution, you know, oh, this has been, you know, preserved at 2K or 4K or 6K, that's fine. Film still has higher resolution, believe it or not. So we're going to see a film today. We're not going to see a copy of a film. We're not going to see an imitation of a film. We're not going to see a replica of a film. We're going to see a film. It's historic for a number of reasons. It was, of course, John Huston's directorial debut. And one of the reasons that came about is that he had been a very successful screenwriter, starting in the early 1930s, and wrote, you know, many successful films, some of them in collaboration with other writers, under contract to Warner Brothers. But he got to the point where he, like a lot of other writers of that period, including Billy Wilder and Preston Sturges, he got frustrated that some directors didn't fully realize his intentions as the writer. And he said, you know, damn, I guess I'll have to direct myself in order to, you know, see this, you know, come to life the way I picture it in my mind. How was he going to get that break? He got that break in part because Warner Brothers already owned Dashiell Hammett's story, The Maltese Falcon, because they'd made it twice before, as some of you certainly know. There's a 1931 version of The Maltese Falcon, which is particularly interesting to see, and it's out on the DVD and Blu-ray. You can check it out for yourself. It's actually, it's what we call a pre-code movie. I'll be talking about that more tomorrow when we show Employees' Entrance. But films made before the imposition of the production code in 1934 were actually kind of racy and eyebrow-raising at times. And that's true of the 31 Maltese Falcon. It's also very well cast. The roles that we associate indelibly with Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre are played by appropriate and well-cast actors in the 31 version. Dudley Diggs plays Caspar Gutman, and the very creepy Dwight Fry plays Joel Cairo. Then they made it again as a B movie called Satan Met a Lady. Not a good title, and not a bad movie, but it's okay. Betty Davis is in it, and Warren Williams. But that's the most forgettable version of the Maltese Falcon. But in order for Warners to make it again, they didn't have to shell out a dime. And they gave John Huston an opportunity. He was going to work mostly with contract players like Bogart, and he was going to shoot on a tight, efficient schedule. Well, he prepared very, very carefully. He did something that was not common then. He storyboarded the film. Now, this is something that, the very term comes from animation. Walt Disney was the sort of pioneer of storyboarding films. It's kind of like a giant comic strip version of the movie, frame by panel, frame by frame. And today it's very common for directors to do this, because then everybody gets an idea of how the film is supposed to look in every scene. Very uncommon then, but Huston did this, because he knew this was his one shot, and if he blew it, he might never get to direct again. It was not a prestige picture for Warner Brothers. Humphrey Bogart, you have to understand, was not yet an A-level star. He'd been under contract at Warner since 1936, but he made a lot of dubious films, some outright turkeys, and some pretty good films too. But 1941 was the turning point year for him, because in that year he made High Sierra, where he played Mad Dog Earl, a very showy role, and he played Sam Spade in The Maltese Falcon. And that's what really turned the tide, so that just a year later when they cast him in Casablanca, he was a star, a full-fledged star. The thing about this movie, though, is that every role is so well cast. Every role, no matter how tiny, no matter how small. When I was a kid and I first saw this, and I saw John Hamilton, I said, that's Perry White from Superman. Because that's the only way I knew him. But, you know, Barton McLean and Ward Bond and Lee Patrick, who plays Effie, and Gladys George, who plays Miles Archer's widow, and Jerome Cowan, who plays Miles Archer. These are all familiar faces to moviegoers. And Mary Astor, who plays Bridget O'Shaughnessy, is just wonderful. because she's playing a deceptive woman, and you can't tell from start to finish what's real and what's not in her character makeup and her dialogue. The one person who was unfamiliar, completely unfamiliar to moviegoers, was Sidney Greenstreet. He was a stage actor. He'd made a couple of silent films, but he was totally unknown to movie audiences in 1941. Imagine seeing him for the first time ever in this film. And note too that when John Huston, when he first meets Sam Spade, he's sitting in a big armchair, which they had to build, to literally build to his specifications because he was so heavy. And John Huston put the camera low to emphasize even more his girth and his powerful presence. So that must have been incredible. And then they had Greenstreet do the trailer, the coming attractions trailer for the film, which you can also see online and on the DVD version. And it's a great trailer. And it was so effective they had to do the same kind of trailer for a half dozen other films in the 40s. And it begins with him in a long shot in the dark with a pin spot on it. And the camera moves, he says, come closer, come closer. And you do. And he starts telling you the story of the Maltese Falcon. Just great. So this film is taken almost directly from Dashiell Hammett's novel. Huston did very little change, very little embellishment. He knew the material was great and that he didn't really have to do much to turn it into a screenplay. He also was blessedly unconcerned with fancy camera moves or quick cut editing, which wasn't even the style in 1941. But he knew enough to let the material speak for itself. These are fantastic characters. The plotting is superb. He didn't have to do gymnastics with the camera or do tricks in the editing room. These people, these characters, and these situations that Hammett invented sell themselves. They didn't need any real help from him. He just had to keep the tone intact. And as a good luck gesture, his father, the great, great actor Walter Huston, makes a cameo appearance. Again, many of you know this already. But I shouldn't spoil where he turns out. But if you don't know it, someone next to you will poke you. And say that's Walter Huston. You can't see his face very clearly at first, but he's there. And of course, 7 years later, John Huston directed his father, Walter, in his Academy Award-winning performance in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. So those family lines have paid off handsomely in both directions. I don't think I need to say much more. This is the Maltese Falcon. It pretty well speaks for itself. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for coming today.